Hi everyone, my name is Eleni. I'm the Marketing Manager at the Big Five. Thank you for joining our webinar today, From Surviving to Thriving, Business Strategies for Construction Startups in the Wake of the Pandemic. The webinar will be recorded today and everyone will receive the recording via email within the next week. If you have any questions, please direct them to the speakers in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens. We will ask as many questions as we can at the end of the panel discussion. I will now pass you on to our moderator for today's session, Abe Seksek. He is the COO for MENA and Russia at Startup Bootcamp. Hi, Abe.
Hey, hello everybody. How is everybody doing? Hope all is well. I hope that today we're going to have a great discussion with our wonderful panelists. Let me just briefly tell you who I am. My name is Abe Seksek, and I'm the CEO of Startup Bootcamp for MENA and Russia. Startup Bootcamp runs programs, acceleration programs. Globally, we span the world from as far as Mexico City to Melbourne, Australia. In Dubai, currently we have two programs, a Dubai Smart City Accelerator, where we talk about a lot of the smart city applications that would help the city run much smoother and faster. And we also have a fintech program. So we usually run a very concentrated programs throughout the world. And I would like to introduce my guests, but I think the best way to do that is I'm going to have every guest talk about themselves, introduce themselves, and then talk about their organization and how are they linked to the startup ecosystem. So let's go ahead and do this. I think I'm going to start with go ladies first with Natalia. So I think Natalia, you can tell us more about what we just asked about.
Thank you very much, Abe. Well, first of all, absolute pleasure to be part of this event and also be part of this panel, distinguished panel. So my name is Natalia Sycheva. I'm Manager of Entrepreneurship with Dubai Chamber of Commerce. And as entrepreneurship arm of Dubai Chamber of Commerce, Dubai Startup Hub has been playing a quite significant role in supporting and promoting entrepreneurship in the emirate of the city of Dubai, and also internationally promoting our startup stories from our city. And we do this through the design and delivery of multiple programs. And this is, we always pursue this collaborative approach, engaging ecosystem partners. And this is where SBC partnership is not new to us, and this is how we know each other. In the nutshell, all our support services and programs could be bucketed into two main areas. Those programs that support business growth of the entrepreneurs in Dubai and from Dubai, and the advocacy efforts of Dubai Chamber, where we work with the regulators, with the government sector peers on identifying those challenges that prevent further startup growth and address those. And all of this allowed us for the past 3 years to serve more than 8,000 entrepreneurs and startups in Dubai. And we look forward for more, and including thanks to this session.
Wow, 8,000, that's a lot. It's great. Cinar, you want to go next?
Hi everyone, my name is Cinar Kurra. I'm the head of Catalyst Startup Acceleration Funding Program located in Masdar City. It's a joint venture of Masdar and BP companies. We're the only startup acceleration program, not in the region, but pretty much in the world, that's focusing on sustainability. And our program is actually 1 year program that innovative startups are accepted to join us in different format. For example, in 5 different pillars. And one is the sustainability, of course, recycling materials, electric mobility, energy efficiency, agrotech, food security, and the latest one that we're adding into our program is biotechnology. We have a very dedicated investment committee group that are doing the complete due diligence for the startups when they are ready to pitch. However, before pitching sessions, we take them through our internal program so that they're ready for the correct pitching session, because most of the time we see, unfortunately, startups not mentioning the correct keywords or correct areas during their sessions. So we try to take them through our different program, training program. Besides, we are located again in Masdar city, but we have a tech park. In tech park, currently we have 9 startups that are also accompanied by another company called Safe City, which is working with the government. And it's a growing area. I believe it's been about 3 years, almost 3 years since the program started. And we're also a part of innovation I4G, Innovate for Good program. And we also join different webinars and different sessions throughout the year. And you're welcome to get more information at our website in catalyst.ae. And I'm sure during the questions and answers, we'll get into some details. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Synar. Aref, would you like to please introduce yourself?
Thanks, Abe, and everyone for this panel. Yeah, Abe, you know, I can relate it to startup. My name is Aref Boualwan. I'm a senior strategy, digital transformation manager at CCC and strategy. And my relation to startup can be summarized in 3 roles I play. One, which part of CCC Group. Another one, I'm a CEO of CC Startup, a subsidiary of CC Group. And third one is I'm strategy officer at the World Economic Forum. Starting with CC, as you know, Brahim, CC is the largest construction company in the Middle East and one of the top 20 in the world. We have realized, like many other leaders in the world, that the construction industry is one of the least digitized industries, if not the least digitized. For instance, the productivity norms for the last 50 years haven't improved. While in automotive manufacturing it doubled. So we strongly believe that one of the main reasons is the gap of knowledge between a traditional industry like construction and the futuristic technologies like startups, where they that a few years back, like 4 or 5 years back, where we partner with startups, create a committee of subject matter experts within CC to help and mentor the startup, and sponsor a pilot where they can explore this technology at large scale. I can mention 4 examples that are related. One, starting with Dubai, because it's hosted from Dubai. We have with Imensa Labs, 3D printing and manufacturing. We have established in our yard in Abu Dhabi with Imensa, additive manufacturing for 3D printing of spare parts for construction equipment. And it was very successful. With Wake Up, which is also Dubai based, we were the first ever to, also with Imensa, the first ever to implement IoT for laborers to improve safety in construction and productivity with Wake Up. Also, we did the first 3D printed house, the livable 3D printed house in the world in Saudi Arabia with a Netherlands-based startup. And we did the off-grid cabin, renewable energy off-grid cabin 24/7 that can operate solely on solar and batteries, disconnected from the grid with a German-based startup. That's from CC side. Quickly from CC Startup, which is after all the success, we established CC Startup to focus solely on that. And we start even having equity. We own equity in many startups, and I sit on the board of some of these startups, which we take it. So we like to call ourselves, Ibrahim, strategic partner. We're not, although we fund sometimes, but we're a strategic partner. And last but definitely not least, our engagement to the World Economic Forum, which can be summarized in 2 points for the startup. One, we've done for 3 years in a row the World Economic Forum Jordan, the regional event, where we sponsored an event called Meet the 100 Arab Startups, Shaping the Fourth Industrial Revolution. This year it was supposed to be in April, first time in Saudi Arabia, but unfortunately due to COVID-19 it was cancelled. And we established many studies and reports related how startups can disrupt the engineering and construction industry.
Fantastic, fantastic. And actually, a part of those 100 World Economic Best Startups that happened, I know it happened in Jordan. 3 of them are actually startup bootcamp companies from the Dubai Smart City program. So we are very aware of what's happening with there, and that's great that a company as big as CCC is getting now involved with this. Okay, thank you all. So let's start with the first question, and again, I would like to hear everybody's input on this this question. How are your companies or organizations help to address the startups in general, and especially the startups in the tech, in the construction and property tech, to respond to this COVID-19, I would say pandemic. I'm not going to say crisis yet, but so how do you go around do that? Did you guys create any stimulus packages? Did you talk to more startups? I'd like to hear what you guys are doing. So I'll leave it to whoever wants to answer it first.
Well, colleagues, if you don't mind, I'll start.
Go ahead, please, Natalia.
All right. So I think
ladies
again,
first, he said already.
Thank you very much. I will use that. As a person working with the startups, I learned from them to leverage every opportunity. If it's my ticket to speak first, I will use that. So I think it's important to period that all the programs and services that we have been building and developing for the past 3 years, they were coming very much almost based on the demand and the need from the startup community. And this is where these 8,000 startups registered with us are our community that we serve. And so with these challenges that COVID-19 put on all of us, on the startups, on entrepreneurs, and the big players in the market as well, I think for us was important to look what's important, what's critical for the community. And there were 3 prime areas of our effort has been in the past 3 months. First of all is continuously delivering the programs and services that already had our members enrolled, including market access program, including smartpreneur competition. But then there were 3 specific demands coming from the startup tech community and including construction. First of all, one of them was the networking with the peers and the peer support. This was the situation when a lot of startups and founders found themselves in a pretty much vacuum. They had the questions, are we the only ones who are experiencing that? Can we connect with the peers? Can we collaborate with them? Can we learn what they are doing? So we went doubling down of running the networking webinars for our founders, for the startups. We've done dozens, if not hundreds of introductions of one-to-one among the startups and founders. The second thing, again, based on the demand from the startups, they were specific in 2 areas of the education. On the one hand, we got a large pool of early stage startups with idea stage, and also the corporate employees who were feeling insecure about their jobs and employment, who started to look into entrepreneurship and see how they can improve their business knowledge, better understand business canvas, what the future business models would look like. So we've introduced a number of the trainings in this respect, and the business canvas and entrepreneurship, Emirati development bootcamp, smartpreneur bootcamp as well. On the other hand, funding. Surprising question, and it's also part of our, I think, today's agenda and the conversation, that especially this was the case of the serial entrepreneurs. We've got a growing number of the startups who were serial entrepreneurs asking, this is the time when we want to prepare ourselves for the next fundraising round, because the business got the slowdown. Everybody faced that. We want to be prepared for the next round. And again, this is where we've done we've run the market access pitch preparation. We've done smartpreneur pitch bootcamp preparation and many other initiatives in this respect. And last but not least, and I think it will probably resonate with the audience on this webinar as well, the question around banking. Banking has been always a burning question for a lot of startups and entrepreneurs, and this time it's also accentuated. So many startups are asking how I can open my bank account, how I can switch my banking provider in order to obtain the banking services to keep running my business in the current situation. So what we've done, we've launched a series of webinars with banking institutions, part of the Dubai Chamber's working group on banking questions for startups. And we run these webinars, again, answering the practical questions, helping the startups individually in groups of opening bank accounts and dealing with the banking situations as well. So these are 3 main areas that we as Dubai Startup Hub of Dubai Chamber, we have stepped in. It has been around networking, connecting the founders to enable them to provide peer-to-peer support. On the other hand, the educational efforts, business canvas funding, and the third, it was around the banking situation, banking services for the startups.
And I think the banking thing is a very important one, Natalia, because I personally experienced this as an entrepreneur. I think my first startup in Dubai, it took us like 9 months to get a bank account, and then we're not even talking about banking, financing, and this was and I think you guys did a tremendous effort to get that value chain to come down to like almost now. Like I know there's this the blockchain, UAE blockchain startup initiative where there's a couple of banks on there, and people can literally, yeah, exactly. People can open up the bank account in the same, technically in the same day. So it's fantastic. You know what I mean? It takes maybe up to a couple of more weeks to find out all the paperwork, but at least you get the conversation going. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gentlemen, who wants to go next?
I can
take this, Ibrahim. Okay, Cinar, go ahead.
Sure, go ahead. Okay, Aref. Okay, Aref.
Okay, maybe it's worth mentioning, Ibrahim, what we're trying to do during COVID-19 pandemic, and then how this relates to where startups fall under that. We have three main pillars that we live up to during COVID-19. First, we want to bring everybody home, safe from our employees and laborers and subcontractors. Second, we want to live to our commitments to regarding the local communities where we operate and see how we can help them overcome or minimize the impact of the pandemic. Last but not least is to live up to our client requirement and deliver our projects like always. Definitely all too big to combine all this during pandemic with the social distancing and many other measures that we took has additional huge costs at our end. How startups fall under that? Maybe 4 areas we can mention here. First, definitely more than ever, we're using conferencing, collaboration tool, or really underused, if you think. And take this nice webinar with you, Ibrahim. I would have to fly to Dubai, maybe, and to attend a big fight, be it now or different. Now I can take it from Athens and enjoy the moderate weather here. So, but that by its own is a big shift for us. Second, I can give some concrete example, again, with Dubai-based startup like Imansa. We're now trying to implement antimicrobial, they're implementing antimicrobial material on PPEs, personal protection equipment for the construction industry. So that would be great. That would allow us to perform our job in a better way, in a faster way. Also with Wake Up, which we implemented a long time for to improve safety and productivity, IoT for which is a helmet being, I'm sure you know about it. The labor and the engineers would wear it on site, and you can track with our labor. But big data, and we're experimenting other similar technology like facial recognition, bracelets where you can track labors, etc. But big data is that you store data for one purpose and you end up using it for another purpose. So we're trying now to use all this information, the huge information that we have, to see how we can do contact tracking and social distancing. So that would improve during COVID-19. Third, which is a very important project, that living up to our commitment to the local community where we operate. Now during COVID-19, and this is maybe touching on innovation, which can be a startup, by the way. So I would like to answer your question, not only startup, but also innovation, which called the Kurra project. Now during COVID-19, as you know, from every 100 that have that test positive, you have 20% requires hospitalization, and 4.5 requires percent requires ICU. So the name of the game is, can you have, UAE, name it, any country in the region, do you have the capacity of ICU unit to cater for the peak? Because many people in Italy died, not because they would have died elsewhere, because they didn't have the ICU capacity at that moment. Had they come at a different time, a different place, they wouldn't have died. So we thought, how could we, part of the World Economic Forum and an MIT professor that's based in Milan, he came out with an open standard to open source and non-profit framework to convert shipping container into IC unit. So we start collaborating, and now we're finalizing 2 samples, one in Milan and one in the region, in the Gulf region, and they succeeded. And we are looking at how we can with technology startups, with the other people in the region. How can scale up this to be mobile, to move, because the peak is moving from one country to another. So imagine NIC units that hundreds or whatever can be moved from one country to another. So this is the 4 area I would like to talk about. But I like to not to put it very rosy, the picture for startups, because I would maybe warn a startup to beware of what you ask for, you might get it. Many startups are now trying to package their solution for COVID-19. If that works and you can add a value and you can quantify the added value, that would be great. Otherwise, this might be a suicide. Beware of what you're asking for. It's an opportunity time if you can deliver. Because we see much hype, and I see, unfortunately, some of the startups trying to pretend that their product would be a COVID-19 help in certain area, which is not. Many are succeeding in that. So this is the only thing I would like to close up with here.
Can I just jump in here?
Yeah, go ahead.
So sorry, but this is what resonates with me, what Aref is saying, that we, in our experience, we have been running market access program where we connect large corporates and the startups. And I have been analyzing lately the information, and less than 50% of the corporates participating are looking for the startups in the exact same industry. Like let's say construction company would look for the construction startups. Today we have pharmaceuticals looking for logistics, consumer businesses looking for oil and gas. Right now we live in this unprecedented time, and this is what Aref, I think you're pointing at, that as a construction industry, you are not looking just COVID-19 for the construction company solution. You are looking for those innovators that will be versatile and that will be sustainable business units and business services complementing your operations in the long run, irrespective whether it's COVID-19 or not, irrespective whether they worked in the construction sector or not.
Exactly. Thank you, Natalia, for pointing that. And this is very important. And this comes to what Cinar, sustainability coming from. I strongly believe what you said is very important, especially for large corporations. COVID-19 is very bad, but it will not kill humanity. What might kill humanity, for instance, environmental crisis. So are we living to our commitment, or we're just thinking inside the box and tackling this crisis? We have to try to survive this period, but nevertheless look at the future and start preparing ourselves from now.
As well, you know, I know we're going to jump to Cinar right now, but as well, keep in mind, like a lot of the big corporates right now, as Natalia said, you know, they're not only looking for cross verticals, but they're also looking at diversifying some of their businesses, because, you know, they can't just depend on that vertical anymore. But anyway, I'm going to leave the floor to Cinar. Cinar, it's your...
Well, in Masdar, you know, after this whole thing, they come up in 2 weeks in a record time for a testing facility within the far edge of the city boundaries. For us, we have 2 companies that directly can be involved with the Big 5, and it's, you know, the construction materials, and one is from the recycled materials. And the other one is in-house energy storage system in a much smarter way than its other competitors, let's say. It didn't really stop the startup life. As a matter of fact, I think it was a good plus for them to rethink their business setup. And especially with our setup in Masdar City, you know, every startup has its own office, and not just the office but laboratories, so they were still coming during this whole 3 months to their offices, because no one else was around. So we are quite lucky, I will say, in terms of the spacing that we have, and it worked very, very well for everybody. The others who couldn't come to UAE, or who couldn't you know, get out of the house, they were working either in their home countries' offices or laboratories, or they were working from home pretty much, but it really did not stop any of the startup. As a matter of fact, it gave us more chance to review more startups, because they had a lot more time on hand. We also liked it because, as you know, we can utilize, I mean, I'm working online since 1997. Pretty much some people were not even born by then, maybe in attendance, but it really didn't matter if you're online or not. I mean, we're talking 97, the internet was not as broad as today. We were using mobile phone to connect our laptop with a cable. It was getting a data channel, not a direct, the new systems that we have right now. And it was a lot slower than today. And but it did not stop us to do the business. So I'll say in 23 years, the Excel files did not change. Excel is still Excel, and some robust systems are still here in our lives. So it doesn't stop us doing the business. I'm happy that people learned that you may not need, actually you don't need physical office spaces to fill with people that waste time on the road. On the contrary, if you need a laboratory space, so this is the biggest hurdle for countries like UAE, because you need to be together with universities a lot more than before. If you want to create technology, if you want to create testing centers for your technology, etc. So we're working on, hopefully in the near future, we'll have a joint testing facility for different products that they can utilize these tools for free. We have a new university in the boundaries called Mohammed bin Zayed University of Artificial Intelligence. I believe it's a junction with Oxford, and that we do plan on that university adding a lot of value to our startups. But deep down, it did not stop the business. Some, of course, got affected because they cannot find the correct grounds to sell their products outside world or export, import, those kind of things. But those had the privilege of, rethinking if the business would survive when there's a second wave, third wave, or 15th wave. If it goes on like this, meaning if people learn to use cheaper products but dependable products during the construction of their house, or if they want to use a storage system, energy storage system, instead of tapping to the grid, so you can use solar more in an efficient way, then it's a good thing to reiterate all the options that you have in front of you. I hope that people learned. I'm not sure if they learned from this. One thing I saw is that if you're stuck in an apartment, and in Abu Dhabi we were quite lucky compared to Dubai, to be honest. If you're stuck in an apartment in a high-rise building, that may not be the best option you have for the future, which means the construction could move on to rural areas or middle of nowhere kind of areas, but standalone units like workspace bungalows and things like that are self-sufficient and sustainable in terms of creating your own vegetables and growing them and creating your own energy and so forth. So those technologies, along with that construction mindset, I think it will move forward. I think it will be time to stop having high-rise buildings, unless of course the biotech goes so well and you have always an instant reaction from the biotech companies to any pandemic in the future. But the crises are crises. It can change. Today this, tomorrow something else. The most important is that, can you survive with what you have? Can your company, few people company or whatever, can it survive? Can those people be happy enough to be in our organization during crisis, or would they just give up? So the psychology, the human psychology, of course, these play a big role nowadays for startups. We were quite okay during this whole 3 months, let's say. I think it's going to be another 1 month, the cautious month, I say, before we travel. And again, when we're traveling, we should be very careful. But I think Abu Dhabi handled quite well, even though, yes, there's a blockage between the cities that could have done a long time ago, but still the reaction, overall UAE reaction was quite fast compared to many other countries.
Agreed.
So I think startup wise, we're in a good stage, but from now on, of course, business has to continue. That's what this.
I think what you have to add to what you're saying is the adaptability, how businesses are adapting to this, and I do believe 3 months, people were panicking, but I think as the city opens up, either cities or even outside the countries, they're opening up. Yeah, some people will go back to their ways, sadly, but I think there's a good, I wouldn't say a majority, there was a good number of people who would think things differently. I can tell you right now, every company I've worked with or started always had a work from home policy, but I don't know if that policy was was dusted, you know what I mean, needed dusting, because really people really did never applied it, right? But now it became a reality, and you talk about the commute to the office. We went back to the office, us as Startup Bootcamp last week, and then a day later said, you know what, working from home was actually much more efficient from us. So we went back home because there was that getting ready, getting to work, commuting and all of that. That was a good 1.5 to 2 hours of our day. So this is something that we can gain back, so again, thank you for the
one quick thing I can add for the startups that are logged in here. One of the major concern I've been hearing, I'm sure you guys will maybe heard it, is that the sterilization effort in the shared bathrooms of high-rise buildings or offices. You may know all your colleagues in that office who uses the same lavatory or bathroom, whatever. But are you sure that when you're sharing with another office in the same floor, which this is the case in many countries, how are you sure that this place that you're utilizing is hygiene enough? So this is, I think, one of the main fear that some startup, I can do it, but I'm not going to do it because we're on the funding side of it. So maybe somebody will take up this idea and think about how to make the bathrooms, shared bathrooms, much more hygiene than before. This is a good startup. Just a hint.
So now we have a startup on our startup bootcamp company that does UV. In the washrooms. So
it could be a junction of things. Now, I don't know if just UV is doing it because it first came out, I think, in Chicago, that Chicago Airport, O'Hare was using it in March, UV lights.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
But yeah, so maybe I can help
may
you
I
out
just
with them.
before you, because also if you speak, Cinar, if you're looking for this kind of solution, I think Expo 2020 Live Grant Program, they have a number of portfolio companies like that, specifically into sustainability, into clean solution as well. But I want to go quickly to the question of the surviving and thriving sentiment in the startup ecosystem as we speak today. I think we shouldn't forget that up to 40% of all startups are doomed to fail within the 4 years of their existence, and a quarter of those cases are related to the fact that there was no business need, there was no market need for their solution. Okay. So, and this is where we could see right now, for instance, we, with our colleagues from around the world, with chambers in different markets, we constantly are in touch to see how the sentiment in the market. And what we see right now, for instance, in Europe, when European Union was rushing into implementing and introducing the new support package to the startups specifically, some of the VCs came actually against those support packages in a subtle manner, saying that we know that 40% of those startups will be out of business, and there is a good reason for that. So, and that's why I think the current situation, it's definitely reduced the fluff around some of the founders who came up with these promising ideas, blockchain, AI, Uber of everything in one sentence, right? So right now, this is where we are going through the time when it first comes value. And what Cinar was talking about, there is an actual need, there is sustainability in that solution. So can somebody take care of these kind of solutions rather than come into the market, profiling themselves as the next innovator XYZ, just putting the trendy blending words together.
Yeah, and I agree with Natalia 100%. You know, the number one reasons why startup fail is either the lack of a product need or product market fit. So, you know, people think it's funding, it's not funding. It's actually that, you know, people create of an idea that people don't want. You know, maybe you as a founder think it's a, you know, it's a great idea, but you know, until you sell it to the next a number of people, there's no market need, and that's product market fit is something very, very, very important in startups.
And this is, Ibrahim, where we play a role here at CCC, that early on, at a very early stage, we allow the startup to come and test their technology and validate their claim.
Yes, exactly.
And I will join Aref, because that's like Aref CCC is one of those examples where then you have been very much a kind of role model for many corporates within even our market access program, because your collaboration and you stepping up in this partnership with Wake Up was quite pioneering. And this is where we are proudly sharing these case studies with all the corporates who are interested to work with the startups. And I would want to point that in the Q2, when we have been running market access throughout this pandemic, we've seen how many technology startups, the competition across some sectors went down, because some of the startups decided to leave the companies. Some of the founders were headhunted by such companies like CCC and the likes, because this is a prospering founder who feels insecure about the prospect of their future. Let us hire him right now. So
I disagree with the strategy, but it happens. Yeah, I know. So I disagree with
across this. And I just mentioned your name, not because you actually did it, but meaning that the big corporates who understand the value of the talented founders and the startups would pursue the talent. So the competition went down across many sectors. And this is what we would see, those startups who will sustain their businesses today, and those those early stage entrepreneurs with idea only, but who are carefully analyzing what exactly will happen in the markets post COVID-19, they will be open up the opportunities. And according to one of the latest reports that came to my attention, speaking about the construction, no, not 70, 50 plus companies, large companies, construction companies, and Aref, correct me if I'm right, using AI today for the predicting of the forecast, for analyzing the planning the operations and increase efficiency. Only 28% of the small companies, construction companies, are using AI. And they're not using it because either they think that it's very complicated, which is sometimes the case, or they think that it's very expensive, which is not the case. Based on the startup solutions. And if you think about, more than half, almost 70% of the whole construction companies are not using AI, not for the energy, not for the efficiency of the operations, no for the forecast.
I think the numbers are even more scary. So the reality is even more scary.
And this is where we speak about the opportunities for the startups.
I agree. And I think it's also a wake-up call for both sides, the partners and the startups, looking at saying, okay, how do we automate this? How do we make our business a bit more fail-proof? And that's why, even now bigger companies will look into these little startups to see how they can disrupt their way they do their day-to-day business. I 100% agree. So let's move on to the future. So what role, of the startups do you see in your company's vision? Do you think your companies or your organizations will, obviously, I know, Catalyst and obviously SBC on my side will always look for startups for new ideas, but obviously we're talking to both Dubai Chamber and CCC. How do you see that for the future? Do you see an industry shift? I'm sure you will, but how major do you think you're going to see? Are we going to go back to our old days? And then I'm going to add, actually, in the last week as well, we've had, I think, 2 to 3 major investments in either prop tech and construction tech companies in the region. So it is something that people are looking at, you know what I mean? And I don't think they were pandemic related. I think they were just, gaining the momentum and just happened to now double down on what's happening right now. But I want to leave that to you guys to talk about the future and talk about your organizations and their look at the startups.
Brahim, I think this is the most important question that we can answer today. First, on the mid to long term, not short term, I'm very positive about the outlook of the market in the region for 2 reasons. First, oil and gas, even if we will not increase the production in the Gulf region, oil and gas, still many plants need to be maintained and developed. So there will be a construction opportunity there. And the demographical growth, one of the most demographical growth areas in the world is the Gulf region, which requires infrastructure, housing, etc., etc. So the future, as for construction industry, mid to long term is going to be positive. As it comes to the technology and how they will take this an opportunity, especially post COVID-19, I don't think the industry will shift. I think the shift happened already. And the most important part, why I say it so, it's the mindset shift. Now the contractors, no matter how much they claim they're doing AI, as Natalia said, and other things, it's very shy implementation of technology. Now I think they believe that these things happen, this thing adds a value because they're experimenting in different areas. So the mindset shift is very important. Here I can illustrate a little bit about 3 areas. First, what we've done in CC, besides creating a war room to tackle the crisis, we created what's called a post-COVID-19 task force with 30 engineers, young engineers, to start research technologies and what technology that we can adopt post-COVID-19 that we couldn't adopt before. Second, I would talk about 2 major reports. I would really advise startups to go read them. They're published online. One, what we contributed to, it's published on the World Economic Forum website, called it's a few years back, but still valid, and it's even more valid now. It's called the Future Scenario, Future of Construction, 2050 Vision, that can be summarized into 3 main reports: building a virtual world, which is robotics, AI, etc. Another one, Factory Runs the World, prefabrication, modularization. Another one, Green Reboot, about different environmental driven construction. So I think this is more than ever relevant because it was so futuristic. Now it's more realistic post COVID-19. So I would want to read that if I'm a startup. And another one that we just published last month, which I think during May, with the basically with the Global Infrastructure Hub, Boston Consulting Group, and the World Economic Forum, which CC we contributed to. It's called The Impact of Mega Trend on the Infrastructure Industry. It's basically 25 transformative mega trends that could reshape our industry. And here is the huge opportunity for startups to innovate and play an influential role. And I can mention the technology part that will shape, not because the report is huge, 6 points, quick points. The rise of new material and substance, the rise of green energy sources, the rise of IoT sensors, smart infrastructure, etc., autonomous driving and new transport modes, and last but not least, digitization in the name of BIM, on-site collaboration, contact tracking, etc., etc. So these 2 reports, I think, would answer your question. If I'm a startup, I would want to read them. And back to my starting point, definitely, especially in the Gulf region, the outlook on the mid to long term for the construction industry and the startups is very positive.
Fantastic. Cinar, Natalia, and would you like to add to that? Cinar, I think it's Cinar. It's your
I'll
turn.
give it to Natalia, you know, what I say is startups will never finish. But maybe we're having a different era of a major change towards sustainability and clever construction, let's say, smart construction, and by using, again, different materials that comes from the waste, because we just, as a human, we took all these privileges that are given to us and we abused it. Let's face it. Let's not lie to ourselves. We abuse the system of the ease of travel, ease of having any kind of apartment, this and that. So when something like this comes up, boom! If we could sit in the home and conduct the business the way we were doing before. Of course, this is a very small percentage, right? The reality is completely different. But even this contributed to the health of the world. So with EP, for example, the new CEO, he came up with the net zero, embracing the net zero, and months after Total came in, they also emphasized the same thing. So things will change. Let's be honest, things will change. We have a majority of plastic on the oceans. So for us, this is what we were looking for from day one. That's why our job is very hard in terms of finding the correct startup in sustainability. But this is the fact. Maybe people will make a lot less income, a lot less profit, and as you know, the top guys in the Silicon Valley, they were talking about, maybe not even a year ago, that people should have a basic salary. People who are working should have a basic salary that could make them survive in this world in a happy and comfortable life. And then just recently, European Union started to talk about this salary to be assigned to everyone in case a second or third crisis happens. So I think that we are going to a different era. So it cannot just be concrete minds anymore. Don't get me wrong, but it has to be a lot clever, a lot more material science involved in all this. And that's why the startup or their traction, their must to sell in a volume type of things might change in a different format. And maybe we're living this era, and this era could take maybe 4 years, 5 years, you don't know. But deep down is people need to think about, okay, when I don't have anything, when I don't make money, I'm a startup, I have an idea. Am I in the right place to realize my idea? Am I in the right country? Is this the right place? That's why in Masdar, we do give opportunities to startups to conduct their pilot applications. So in a way, they start with not with zero, they start with something on the hand so that they can move on the life. And that's why we do the due diligence with the strategic planning team, and to see if, and also the sustainable real estate group, to see if any of these projects can be applied from. I think it's a very positive, in a way. Yes, so many people died. I'm really sorry for that. But we have to be healthy. We have to be thinking really clearly. We have to know what we really want in this life, what we really want to develop. And we need to check if our ecosystem is giving us any kind of opportunity to realize this in a smart way. So that's what I can say at the moment for it. But we're not going to stop. The startup business will never stop. As a matter, I think it will increase more and more.
Yeah, and I think to add to that is, the last, economic crisis, we had great companies come out of it. So I think we're just gonna always have that. I think this will only spark opportunities for a lot of entrepreneurs right now to come in and, come with their ideas, or if they're working on an idea, they would scale it tremendously. Natalia?
Yeah.
Well, I think, gentlemen, I think it's absolutely a pleasure to participate in this kind of conversation, because it turned out quite philosophical as well. Cautiously optimistic and philosophically positive conversation. I think I would like to go back to probably that I already mentioned before. I think what we are going through right now is through this wonderful time of this cross-industry convergence between the industries and sectors. And speaking about the future of the construction, real estate, prop tech startups that we're talking about. Okay, we as Dubai Startup Hub, Dubai Chamber, we have registered slightly more than 3,000 startups with us. We have the data. Are there a lot of construction on the real estate startups? Not really. And probably, we can talk about successful stories, but we're not talking about thousands of construction startups in Dubai. That's the reality. And it's not a good or bad, because in reality, there is more and more non-construction, non-prop tech startups will be serving the industry. And just to give the examples, and some of the entrepreneurs are coming to us today with such an ideas as, for instance, fintech startups who would like to make trustworthiness, to increase the trustworthiness between the landlords and the lessee. Or if we speak about e-commerce startups who have right now accumulated enormous data points about each community and each area and the interests of people, that these e-commerce companies could work much more closer with the real estate companies to develop better communities, to develop a better and more relevant infrastructure for those. This is on the one hand. So we would, as the Dubai Chamber, we expect these new technologies, new solutions coming through this industry convergence. On the other hand, speaking about the sustainability of the businesses and sustainability as the solutions. So we, earlier this year in January, we started Smartpreneur competition, startup competition that Dubai Chamber is doing on an annual basis for 5 consecutive years. We identify the top 50 startups and all of them in the area of the sustainability, mobility and opportunity. Everything is related, sustainable architecture, new fuel sources and so on and so forth. So over the top 50, we needed to reconnect with them to onboard them in the bootcamp. I would be honest that there was a concern during the pandemic, who of these top 50 are still in the business and are keen to continue the journey with us. All 100% of these top 50 with the sustainability related solutions were keen to build their businesses. Some of them international, they were still keen to come to Dubai and develop the business in Dubai. And to finish, I say, and this is what my colleagues, I think we all on this panel are resonating, that Dubai is very well positioned in terms of dealing with the digitalization across the sectors, be it government services like Dubai Chamber, when we continued servicing the customers with 98% of the operations online. CCC never stopped working with the startups, digital solution, conversing and cooperating with them digitally. Cinar, Masdar had even the infrastructure to ensure that you have this very harmonic combination between the times of the COVID and restriction of the movements and still providing the infrastructure for the innovators to work from the labs. That's unique. That's unique place and unique setup. And I think we definitely look forward as Dubai, as the digital transformation will be positive not only for the construction industry, but for the Dubai as a whole ecosystem. And we definitely look forward to collaborate with all of you on doing this, on making this happen.
Thank you, Natalia, for this. So I'm going to open up the conversation, the questions for everybody to ask. We do have one question that come in, and it's a question for Mr. Aref. It says, regarding CCC 3D printing startup, is it planned that, I'm just reading the question, is it planned that in the near future, 3D houses, not tall buildings, will be the norm and the most common method of construction in the Middle East? And which countries are the closest to this application?
Yeah,
so they're asking, like, how common is the 3D printing going to be? How scalable? How fast can CCC apply this model of the 3D printing?
Yeah, basically, at the moment, 3D printing, what we're doing, it will not replace construction traditional norms soon. But there are many applications, especially when you have complex shapes, where 3D printing concrete, because this question when we talk about housing is concrete, because we have 3D printing metal and plastic. So I will focus on concrete. Currently, one of the main challenges is the high cost of 3D printing is the local material. And this is where we're collaborating now. We're partnering with Lebanese startup called Build Inc. And probably Sharjah Research Center to try to how can we, because they innovated a material that can be produced locally to reduce the cost to a very high end. Once this succeeds and we can break this myth of having the mortar for 3D printing more expensive than traditional concrete, okay, if we can come for a balance, then the robot will compete with the labor. But now the robot is competing with the labor as far as rate, and the material, the mortar, is competing with traditional material, which both are a bit more expensive. The 3D printing, for it to replace construction or to take a big portion of construction, has to evolve in 3 directions. One direction is the robot itself, which I think became very mature and it's maturing by the time. The software behind the robot, how much it can, what things it can do, which also maturing a lot. And third, I think this is where the big innovation, the material. How can we produce material? If I can produce material to print this in Athens cheaper than importing it from China, I would never import. I would produce it here. So the material is the key point, and this is our focus for the coming period. One additional note, just talking about, Natalia point of philosophy, which I thank her, especially living in Greece. I would like to say about Plato used to say, and this is for the startups to use, excellence is not a gift, but a skill that takes practice. So I would definitely recommend for startups to practice more their technology before taking it to before claiming success.
Okay, thank you very much, Aref. We have another question. It's more of a general question, and I think this would be the last question, and it goes to all of you. It says, what are the suggestions for startups based outside of the UAE and would like to expand into their markets in the Middle East region? I know it's very, very basic. I know I can answer, but I would like to keep it to you guys. And then maybe after that, we'll do a very 30-second wrap up of everybody who wants to say the last word before we end our session. Anybody wants to take this question on?
I think, if I may, because I think this is the bread and butter of Dubai Chamber. One of our key focuses is identifying those promising startups and attracting them to Dubai. But obviously, we are not, as Dubai Chamber, we are not incubator, we are not accelerator, and we are not CCC, right? So our jobs here is to channel and provide clarity and navigation for such anonymous attendees with a similar such request. So I think one of the important thing to think about is, again, who are your customers, and connect with the customers even before you think about physical expansion to the market. That's eliminates a lot of hassle, a lot of doubts. We keep receiving a lot of inquiries that would love to come to Dubai and do the business here, but it's very expensive. So that's very, very common thing, and I think all of us have heard about it. And then my next question would be, have you spoken with your customers? And right now we are living in this perfect environment when everybody is digital. None of the corporations, large or small, but your customers could tell you that, you know what, you need to come here and then we'll see your solution. Everybody right now is working virtually. So probably what I would suggest, well, aside from the fact that we would welcome you to connect with Dubai Startup Hub, Dubai Chamber, so we better understand your specific solution, your specific interest in the market, so we can provide you some additional clarity and maybe some hand holding, is about actually doing your research about who are your customers and connecting with them, especially those customers who are part of the accelerators, incubators. That will be something that SBC is doing, right? So that's an easy, if you know that this your potential customer is already investing in an accelerator incubator, make sure that you learn more about application cycle with this accelerator incubator. Or if it's a standalone corporate, I wish you good luck with a LinkedIn for many reasons. And I think right now we're all there, we're all professional, and we receive a lot of inquiries from there, and then we channel them back to the organization and we process them. But definitely customer first.
I would build on very fast on what the excellent point that Natalia brought. I would advise the startup, think local before you think physical, to go there physically. Think local. Take two examples. See what Karim did versus Uber, how they thought local. Take what Anghami did versus SoundCloud or others, and think, understand the culture, understand the need of the region, and do your product wherever you are. Move to Dubai. It's nice. It's a lovely city, but it's not about physical move. It's about thinking local.
Yep. Fantastic, guys. So I know we have 2 more minutes left, so I'd like to, if everyone can give us a 30-second wrap up of your thoughts today. It was a lovely having all of you on the call. I think we had a very constructive conversation today, and hopefully, we'll go back to the new normal, I guess. So let's start again. So who wants to go first? Natalia, let's go with Natalia as always. So please, your 15-20 seconds, please.
my just one advice to all entrepreneurs or people who are thinking about entrepreneurship, I think about make sure that you take advantage from the infrastructure that exists in Dubai, in the UAE, for the startups, for the entrepreneurs. And I'm talking about physical infrastructure, and I'm talking about all these entrepreneurship related programs, incubator, accelerator, corporate accelerator programs that exist for you, networking opportunities. So just don't take it for granted, benefit from it.
Fantastic. Synar?
Well, prepare your pitch deck. If it's not us, there are plenty of incubators and accelerators and funding programs in UAE that are looking for startups, but your pitch deck is the most important with your financials, your forecast, and your, of course, technology, and just apply.
Thank you. Mr. Aref?
Yeah, it's the world will live a partial crisis in the coming 1 year to economical to 18 months. So if I were a startup, definitely we like to, they would look at growing, but the opportunity is not to grow now, I think. The opportunity is to build your product and validate your claims. That's an opportunity. There'll be slowdown in the economy in the short term. It's not a secret. So build your product, make it stronger, so you'll be ready when the economy launches.
Again, thank you guys for your time. It was a pleasure having all of you. And I'm sure we're going to get in touch with all of you soon. And for everybody who attended the webinar, thank you very much for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.